'Twas the night before Christmas, and all through the field, not a Jaguar player was stirring. All they did was yield. The Bucs hung 30, passing through the air, while hopes of the playoffs were replaced with despair. The turnover machine Trevor was sent early to bed, with visions of defenders celebrating playing on in his head. And Doug with his kerchief and Balky with a dunce cap were settling into an early retirement nap when all of a sudden the special teams caused such a clatter. Brandon McManus had been replaced with a broken ladder. Away Trevor goes after another errant pass. Baker and Mike Evans tore open the defense, hitting the gas. The Jaguars gave up, not playing to the final whistle, leaving the fans eating a mouthful of thistle. I heard Khan exclaim before he left out of sight, "Happy draft time to all. We are never going to be all right."
I don't know if the snap came through or not, but I think you're supposed to do that after a good poem. So well done, JT.
Yes, well done with the Christmas spirit and also capturing the sad, sad soul of the Jag spirit as we open up this podcast with JT's awesome poem. It is a sad tale to tell right now for the Jaguars, but we aren't going to try to focus too much on the sad because the season is not over yet. We are not out of the race. We were blessed this Christmas with a bunch of losses. The Colts lose, the Houston Texans lose, the Denver Broncos lose. It was at least somewhat good for the Jaguars, even if it wasn't our performance that was good. So we won't go too much into the offseason, as I know a lot of Jag fans kind of are already looking forward to that because that seems to be the only bright spot right now on this team. This performance that they had against the Bucs was abysmal. I don't know if they actually even left Duval. That's not the Jags team that I've seen show up at all this season. I felt like I was taken back to like 2010. I've been wishing for nostalgia, but that was not the nostalgia I wanted. That was disgusting that the Jags put on a show like that on Christmas Eve. It was just so sad, but we won't let it ruin the holidays for us or ruin the Jags for us, because you know what? Something that I realized all last year, Doug Peterson talked about trust. He had to build trust on this team to help put away the bad taste that we had of the Urban Meyer. And you know what? We're starting to get a bad taste again. But I'm going to go ahead and trust the Jaguars. Trust that they can turn it around. Trust Doug Peterson knows what he's doing. He's won a Super Bowl. And I'm going to trust that the players will figure it out and fix what needs to be fixed before getting to the playoffs. All we have to do is pretty much beat the Panthers and not get blown out by the Titans, and we are in. So just turn it around right now. All pressure's off, kind of. The fans aren't expecting a Super Bowl anymore. We're not expecting much of anything. Get some good playing against a not-so-good Panthers team. It's time to have that turnaround game. Gain some confidence, Jaguars. It's okay to win. Please remember that. It's okay to care for things. I saw a team last week that didn't care. They didn't care to play offense. They didn't care to play defense. They didn't care if they won. It's okay to care, and I want you to care. Please bring hope and trust back to Jacksonville, and that is our opening. How are y'all feeling after that game, guys?
That's the problem, Joey, is this team doesn't have heart. This team is broken. Not only is it 4 losses in a row, it's 4 losses where you're getting outplayed in every facet of the game. Outplayed by offense, outplayed by defense, outplayed by special teams, outplayed by coaching. And so I'm going to keep with you, Joey. I'm going to give a positive spin. Y'all ready for the good news and then the bad news? Here's the good news for the Jaguars. This is officially rock bottom. This is rock bottom, not just because you played your worst game of the season, but because you're going into a game against the Panthers at home. The Panthers have not won a single game on the road. They're 2-13, but in the back of every Jaguars fan right now, there is a little glimpse of, oh, wouldn't it be the Jaguars to go and lose this easy game? This should be a game that you should be able to make a ton of mistakes and still win. But maybe you're like me and saying, well, we're probably going to get blown out. We can't even beat the Carolina Panthers, the worst team. So this is rock bottom. Here's the bad news. Rock bottom can last a long time, and something needs to change for this team. This team feels broken all across the board. There's no game balls to pass out today because nobody is getting it done. No one is playing with heart. No one is playing with urgency. You have 2 games left. You are still crazily tied for first in the AFC South. You still have the lead in your division. You still control your own destiny, and this team doesn't seem to care. It's broken. It's messed up. This is rock bottom. It cannot get any lower than this.
You guys are way off. Jack, you're a week early. When we record next week, that will be rock bottom after we lose to the Panthers at home for only their 3rd win in the entire season. That's going to be rock bottom. The fact that you've completely bungled this entire season away is just frustrating to no end. The talent is at least there, good enough to win some of these 50-50 games. And a team last year that thought they could come back and win against anything, it feels like we go down by a field goal in the first half and the game's over. There's no heart, there's no nothing. It doesn't feel like we're going to be able to win. It feels like we're the 2022 Titans. Or Joey, your analogy was perfect. In 2010, the Jaguars were having a little bit of a magical season. You have that game-winning field goal with the Colts. You have the Hail Mary with Mike Thomas. You're all of a sudden, you look up, you're 8-5. The Colts are stubbing their toe and falling apart. You have 3 games left, 2 of them against the 5-10 Washington Redskins at the time and the 5-10 Houston Texans. And then what do? You lose to the Colts in Indianapolis, not the end of the world, because all you have to do is win one of the next 2 games and you'd still be in the playoffs. What do? You then lose at home to Washington, which I was there. It was like the coldest game of all time. They ran out of hot chocolate, which was just awful when it was 20 degrees, it felt like, and cold there in overtime to that terrible Redskins team, Washington team. And then you lose the Texans getting blown out 17-34 in a game where you needed a little help at that point to be able to make the playoffs. And I would not be surprised if we're recording this next week and we're saying, look, we're going to need somebody else to lose in order for us to win, in order for us to even make the playoffs. This is ridiculous.
It is ridiculous. And I don't know what it takes for this team to get that heart. I watched as the defense did not tackle again, that was a strength of ours. What happened? I'm watching guys break out of tackles, and then as the defender is holding someone up, there's 2 or 3 Jaguars standing around, just assuming that guy was going to make the tackle. Instead of those other 2 or 3 guys, instead of standing around, go help finish the pile. That's effort. You want to know the reason why the Ravens beat the 49ers? Look how aggressive they are, the effort. They're crashing through their screens. They're crashing through. They play hard-nosed football. The AFC North bullied us. Hard-nosed football hit us in the mouth every single time. And then you let the stinking Tampa Bay Bucs hit you in the mouth. That's one of the softest teams of all. It's Baker Mayfield, who I can't stand. I came from the Big 12. I hate that man with a passion. And you just let him look like Tom Brady. You let a crumbling Bucs team that people thought nothing of come and just whip your behind. I'm not talking about, oh, they beat us and we made mistakes. Yeah, we made our own mistakes, but it doesn't matter. Even if we played a perfect game, we still would have lost that game because there was no effort and there was just no willingness to try to win. It was disgusting.
Yeah, that's why I think we're at rock bottom. That's why I don't have trust or necessarily hope for this team to bounce back.
I hope it's rock bottom. I really think there's a good chance we're rock bottom in the next week or 2. Because right now we're still somehow winning the division. So it's hard to say it's completely rock bottom at this point.
Is rock bottom because 4 weeks ago you're 8-3 in first place in the AFC, and now you're racing to the bottom with two other teams with a whole ton of injuries, both playing their backup quarterbacks, and we still can't pull ahead.
We have hit technical rock bottom, but unfortunately there is a basement. If we lose to the Panthers, the floor could still fall out. But the question is, can this team brush it off? You remember what they said last year? Okay, good. Now what? Okay, good. Now what? You lost 4 games. You played the worst game out of any NFL team last week. Easily. You're playing like the 32nd team. The Panthers are playing better than you. Good. Now what? What are you going to do to change it, Jacksonville Jaguars? It's on you, the players and the coaches, to change it. Okay, good. Now what?
The mantra we had last year was it was always the Jags. And you know what? There were a couple times in that stretch run last season, including the playoff game where we were down 4 scores against the Chargers at home, where you feel like, you know what? It is always the Jags. The Jags are just going to find a way to win it. We did it multiple times that year. And for the most part, it's the exact same roster. No thanks to Trent Baalke for making us any better. But as Joey said, that's a story for another time. And so look, here we are, and we're going to be playing the Panthers, and we'll break it down in our next episode much more further. But here's a sneak peek. Look at what they've been doing recently. They played the Texans they beat the Texans. They play the Bears, which are hot, within a field goal. They play the Titans within a score. They play the Bucs within a score. They beat the Falcons, and then they just played the Packers within a score too, with only a couple of blowout losses in the middle. Look, they're definitely trending in the right direction at a time where Jacksonville is an absolute free fall.
And here's the biggest problem is you would think, oh, the Panthers would want to lose this game to tank and get that first overall pick, but they've already traded away that pick to the Bears. So they actually have incentive to win. And that is a scary thought because the last 4 weeks, the last 4 games, every team has had more heart, more hustle, more desire, running all over us, and offensively struggling. So let's break it down. Offensively was another train wreck. Yet another game where we turn the ball over a ton, 4 times. We get shut out in the first half in back-to-back games. So as you break down the offense, I don't even know. Where do you want to start with the Jaguars offense on Sunday?
Well, I guess we should talk about Trevor getting hurt again. It's starting to compile on him. You got the ankle, you got the knee, you got the concussion, now you got a shoulder. I understand Trevor is a tough man. I understand that we feel that we cannot win without him, but there comes a point where your injuries outweigh your usefulness. I played high school football. I went to the state championship and our quarterback got hurt. And instead of going out and letting our backup at least give us a chance, he decided to go back out there, hurt, and it cost us the game because he couldn't throw it past 10 yards. And he kept throwing interceptions, and he kept going out there, and it was actually hurting the team, not helping the team. At a certain point, there is a tipping point where you are too hurt to play, and I think, unfortunately, Trevor has hit that moment. It is the Panthers, so I believe that we can win with a backup, and I believe that's what's going to have to happen because Trevor needs a breather. He just needs a breather. He looks exhausted. He looks broken, and he is the spirit of this team, and if he is broken, then the team is broken. So it needs to be someone else. It's time for CJ Beathard, which I thought I would never say.
Yeah. And the way I'm hearing you say that, Joey, you're not actually saying long-term Trevor is not the answer or the problem.
No,
or
yes.
anything
No,
like
that
but
I'm not on that side of crazy Jags fans who are like, he's a bust. Get rid of him. Go draft JJ McCarthy a first round. I saw that on Twitter. Whoever that was, you're so dumb. He's not the answer, JJ McCarthy. Trevor is still the answer.
JJ McCarthy
he just needs
stinks.
Yes, he does.
JJ McCarthy is CJ Beathard, but like that's for the offseason.
Yes,
to discuss
yeah, we won't get too much into that. No, I'm not saying Trevor's not the answer. I'm just saying he needs a breather. Let his injuries heal for the playoffs and let someone take the reins just for a week.
I don't disagree with you, Joey. I think Trevor's pushing too hard. He's pressing too hard. I don't know if it's because of injuries, if it's because he's seeing ghosts, if it's because he's not able to trust the receivers running the routes. At this point, it feels like it's about 6 or 7 different things that are all contributing to his downfall, not to mention the fact that we can't even potentially run the ball. I know we only ran the ball 6 times for 12 yards, but it doesn't help when you blink and all of a sudden the game is you're down 17. and then on top of that, you're playing against the number 1 run defense against fantasy running backs. And so, yeah, it's not a shock that we weren't able to run the ball against a very good front 7. What was concerning to me, though, is the first half, Calvin Ridley did almost nothing. I mean, we did not target Evan Ingram enough. Elijah Cooks flashed a couple of times. He looked nice. And then the other concern, too, in the receiving core is, look, this is now the 4th or 5th game where Parker Washington is backfilling Christian Kirk. And he is a rookie. And there's a lot of learning curves. And it's a different game speed. And the windows are tighter. And all yada, 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 yada. But you're not really seeing him get any type of separation. And this is part of why a guy who was going into last season was ranked decently high among some of the wide receivers, like maybe the 7th or 8th best wide receiver, but he fell all the way to the 5th and 6th round because he just doesn't have that ability to separate. And so 2 receptions for 19 yards against a really weak Bucs secondary is extremely concerning to me. And so like look, a long term, you're probably not going to be starting Parker Washington, but it's just a lot of guys that are just guys out there. And Calvin Ridley being one of them. There's nothing out there outside of Evan Ingram that really scares you on the Jaguars offense if you're the opposing defense.
There's not a whole lot to say that hasn't been said every week. Yet again, a ton of turnovers, a ton of missed opportunities where the game just slides away. And yeah, we never ran the ball. We couldn't. We were down so much. We ran the ball the first 2 plays. ETN gets 2 carries. He gets 33% of his carries in the first 2 plays of the entire offense. The time of possession in this game is nuts. The Tampa Bay Bucs have the ball for almost 15 more minutes than us. They played almost an entire quarter with the football on offense more than we did. You can't ever win that game. And you had 4 turnovers to their 0. Not to mention they dropped a few interceptions as well. It's a mess. This offense is a train wreck. And barring some incredible miracle where we get these next 2 wins and we go on somehow a run in the playoffs, there's going to have to be significant changes on the offense from a play calling standpoint. There's going to have to be significant changes to the players, to the personnel, because there's really not much as far as talent. The offensive line yet again had a terrible game. Trevor's throwing terrible. We can't run the ball. Our receivers aren't making plays. And even Evan Ingram, who has been amazing all season, he gets a fumble to join in the turnover party in the second half. So the offense is a mess.
What really kind of frustrates me is the entire offseason and kind of what they've been preaching to us for the last 2 years is camaraderie, a locker room, and this whole team is so, together, rah. We're not going to draft anyone that could upset this locker room. And guess what? That's over. This locker room is trash now. The locker room has no life. You watch Sound of the Game. I don't ever see any excitement in that locker room. I don't see any fight from these players. Your idea of, locker room chemistry and everything like that, it didn't work. I'm sorry. That experiment did not work. You know who didn't do that experiment? Every other NFL team. And they went out and drafted good players, and you make the team work the way it needs to work. You don't draft off of good feelings, and if you're a good person and maybe you'll become a good football player, that's trash. That's so trash. This team is trash right now, and it's got to change. And it starts in the locker room. There's no trust in the offensive line. There's no trust in the wide receivers. Trevor doesn't trust his offense. The coaches don't trust the players. Defense does not trust the offense. The kicker doesn't trust us, and we don't trust the kicker. It's so dismantled right now. And that's all that they were preaching to us. So to have that blow up, and that was your one thing you preached to me, that's really, really sad from the coaches.
I'm glad you brought up the offseason, Joey, of last year, because what did we do? We went all of our resources. Yes, JT, you called this out earlier. We needed to make more moves, but all of our moves were on the offensive side. We traded for Calvin Ridley last year, who was suspended, and we are all hyped on the Calvin Ridley trade. Our first 3 draft picks are all offense. We go Anton Harrison, who I will give Trent Baalke one credit, has been a very nice draft pick. We have Brenton Strange, who isn't doing anything. And then we have Tank Bigsby, who can't see the field because he would also join in the turnover party of we are the number 1 team in the NFL in terms of fumbles. Even though we're tied for second at causing turnovers in the NFL, we still have a -3 turnover margin. This offense we've invested so heavily in is broken. It's not working. This was supposed to be a top 5 offense in the league, and we're playing, especially in the last month, like a bottom 10 offense. And that's why you have to say maybe it's both, but either it is a personnel problem or it is a coaching problem. It's got to be one or the other because this offense has massively missed expectations.
It can't be a personnel problem because it's the exact same team you had last year. The only difference is that you do not have Jim Bob Cooter anymore. And I've said this the last couple episodes now. He looks very good with the Colts, and we look terrible without him. I contribute our offensive success to him, and I dub all of our issues on Press Taylor. He has always had someone when he was at the Eagles to back him up and to help him out. Doug helped him out last year, and this is the year. This year is he has had it all to himself, and look how he has failed miserably. A giant F. You have the same players and yet better players than last year. You went out and got Calvin Ridley, and I don't grant Trent Baalke for getting Anton Harrison. You know why? Because you had to draft Anton Harrison. Juwan Taylor walked, so you have to go get a right tackle, and he was the best player. That was just, he was the best player available, and that's how we need to draft. Best player available. No more of this, oh, he's a good guy, good team fit. No. No more team fit. If you're the best player, then you will fit in this team. Not, oh, he's a good chemistry guy. I'm tired of that. If you can play, if you can get sacks, if you can catch the ball and get touchdowns and yards, then I want you on the team.
Yeah, there was something that Daniel Griffiths tweeted out after the game, and it was talking about pressures allowed versus the Bucs. And now we're not being able to fully verify this, but I think directionally it's probably pretty accurate. 0 for Brandon Sheriff. Brandon Sheriff, from a passing perspective, actually had a decent game. Anton Harrison also a 0. So the night and day difference that he's had from the start of the season to the beginning of the season is impressive. And look, I think he's been nice. Luke Fortner 3 pressures allowed, which is just awful for a center. 5 for Walker Little. And then, oh, by the way, if you thought Ezra Cleveland was our success and the reason why we are doing better and he looks great, yada, yada, yada. Well, he gave up 7 pressures to the Bucs. Now, their interior defensive line's very good. Walker and Ezra Cleveland are both playing injured, but that's just awful. And that's part of what's supposed to be the strength. And all this is doing is making you want to re-sign Cam Robinson because of how poorly the offensive line has played. And look, that's probably a lot of it because right now Jacksonville is second to last in yards per attempt for rushing. They're bottom 6 in total rushing yards. They actually lead the entire NFL right now with most fumbles offensively. And their passing offense, which is supposed to be a top 5 to top 7 level of offense with some of the additions, we're middling. We're somewhere between 11 to 17 in most passing categories right now. And it's just, if you tell me right now you have a bottom 5 pass defense, a bottom 5 run offense, a middling pass offense, and a falling in the wrong direction run defense, yeah, you probably are about a borderline playoff team. And that's exactly where we're at. We're no different than the Atlanta Falcons, than the Buccaneers. We're actually worse than them, or any of those other 6-8 to 8-7 type of team.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right, JT. There's not just much to say about that, unfortunately. we are a middling team. And that's not the talent we have. The talent is a top 10 talent, I believe, when we're fully healthy. But they're not playing to it. And to that, it's on the players to play up to it, but it's also on the coaches. And I've heard a lot of excuses this season from the coaches. And I just heard it again from Doug Peterson after this. He says, I can't make them stop fumbling. I can't make them do whatever. You're the coach. It all is on you. If you put players out there who aren't ready, who aren't experienced, your job is to practice, make sure they're ready, and you make sure that they perform to their utmost and absolute, get everything out of them. That is the job of a coach. I am sorry, Doug Peterson, you were coach of the year last year. I believe it. It should have been you. But this season, oh my goodness, I understand you don't understand what's going on. Like you're scratching your head. You don't know why things aren't working out. Well, something's got to change. And it starts with you, unfortunately. What are you going to do? Are you going to yell at someone? Are you going to fire someone? Are you going to waive someone? Something has to change.
Completely agree, Joey. Like at this point, look, McManus is completely broken. Kicking is 90% mental, especially for these kickers at this level. Obviously, there's a lot of talent involved, or else they wouldn't be at this level. But once you get here, it's all mental. And once he's got the yips bad, his kicks don't even look good. Even the extra point he made last week against the Ravens looked really bad. And so what was kind of like, if you look at like the statistics, okay, Jacksonville 300 yards, almost 270 total passing yards, like 5 yards per play. That's not bad. But the reality is most of that came in the last quarter and a half when you're already down 30-0. The Buccaneers are putting in a prevent defense, and a lot of their backup players at that point, including the Jags, were doing the same thing. So yeah, Calvin Ridley had a nice 90 yards, and Evan Ingram had 95 yards and all these receptions. The lion's share of that came when the game was already cemented close.
Yeah, one final thought is just that I agree with y'all. I think I agree with probably every Jaguars fan who says this has to come down to coaching. Not that the players have, of course, missed a lot of opportunities, bad throws. Trevor is number one in the NFL in the last several seasons of 3 turnovers or more in the entire league, which that's a brutal stat. But the Jaguars come out flat twice in a row, shut out in the first half. That hasn't happened to the Jaguars since 2018. That means even as bad as we were with Urban Meyer and that 1-15 Jaguars team, we never were shut out in back-to-back games in the first half. That's how bad this offense has been these last several weeks.
Yeah, and those first 2 drives would be on a coaching script. So theoretically, you're drawing up your best plays, and it's an absolute disaster. And it doesn't help the fact that Jacksonville's digging themselves out of a hole all of these losses. Joey, you've outlined already multiple times that games where we're losing at half, we lose every single game. Games where we're winning at half, we win every single game.
Yeah, this team has to get the ball on the first kickoff, and they have to score. That's the only thing that will give them confidence, and it's the only thing that determines this game. If they give up points and start losing off the first drive, guarantee loss. This team does not have enough spirit, and the coaches definitely don't help the spirit at all. They see that they're down, and then they stay down. They take one little punch, and then they're out for the count. We have the weakest chin out of any NFL team right now. You put 3 points on us and we fold like a lawn chair. It's disgusting. And it's not the team that we used to have. We were down 27 points in the playoffs, and we mount a comeback that was crazy, that put us on the map. That's what people believed, was the Jags never give up. We're scared of the Jags because it looks like we put them away, but they will never give up. The fans never give up. They've had such a terrible team forever, and yet they still cheer on. They have such grit and such determination. Not anymore. Where'd it go?
So we should
Yep,
switch
well,
to the defensive side of the ball, where it was not much better than the offense. In fact, in many ways, in the first half, it was worse. And so, look, there's a number of key statistics that were all terrible for this situation. Number one, the time of possession, 37 minutes. Jacksonville typically prides themselves on being able to possess the ball. We certainly could not. And that's because the second stat that I'm going to read off, they were 10 of 19 on third down, plus getting another fourth down conversion. I'm pretty sure the first few drives, they were like 5 of 5 or 6 of 6, including their fourth down conversion in the first half alone, which is why you blink and it's like, oh, wow, Jacksonville's getting their second possession and it's already the second quarter. The defense could never get off the field. Baker Mayfield was a Houdini back there, escaping some of the plays. 283 and 2 touchdowns. Another guy who almost throws for 300 yards. And if our offense could have had a pulse, he certainly would have thrown over 300 yards because our defense wasn't stopping them. Which leads me to the final key key statistic for our defense, and that is 0 turnovers again. If you look back at the games where Jacksonville is not competitive, it's when our defense does not get any turnovers. Our defense, at the beginning of the year, we thought was going to be a problem. Toward the middle of the year, we're thinking, okay, this is actually turned into a strength, but some of that was masked because we're forcing 2 to 3 turnovers almost every single game. I think we're averaging 2.3 turnovers per game there for a while, which of course is going to make your defense look a whole lot better if you're shortening the game and giving your offense great field position and the opportunity to go up. And Baker's, again, one of those streaky players where if he starts falling behind or he starts making turnovers, you could really start to see it snowball. And so, unfortunately, that was not how it played. Came out confident. They played confident. If you're breaking down the Buccaneers offense, it was a near perfect game. The only hair on that entire performance is the fact that they could not really get the run game going as effectively as they probably wanted to.
They didn't have to get the run game going because it doesn't matter if it's Baker Mayfield. It doesn't matter if it's Jake Browning. It doesn't matter who's back there. They just torch our defense apart, especially in these last couple months. Bryce Young is probably going to have a field day, even though he's struggled and been a massive disappointment. I would not be shocked if he goes out and scores almost 400 yards on our defense.
What I saw from our defense is a broken defense. I see a defense that's been scarred by this offense for never taking advantage of the times that they get the ball off the field or turnovers. That doesn't trust probably some of the calls and still the offense. What helps the defense is seeing an offense go down and score, and then you want to go get that ball back for your offense and get the ball back into where they can get more points and everything like that. But when you have an offense that can't move the ball, isn't scoring, looks disgusting, like is turning the ball over 4 times a game, like, how many times have we turned the ball over 4 times? You're hurting your defense when you're doing that. It's not just you're hurting the offense and the team, but the defense has to go back out there, and now they have a shorter field to deal with. Now they have an offense that has a ton of energy, and they have all the momentum, and now you're on your heels constantly because your offense turns the ball over. It doesn't matter if it's an interception, a fumble, whatever. We find a way to give the ball back, miss field goal. Here, take the ball back. We don't care.
The defense did not play nearly as well as they needed to, especially when the offense was really coming out limping during the first part of the games. Even just looking at the statistics, I think we had about 15 missed tackles is one of the stats that I saw on Twitter that we had. And it certainly seemed like it. It felt like I was watching the Florida Gators defense, which any Gator Jag fan knows was just awful last year, the year before, and the year before that too. And looking at the team too, Devin Lloyd only had 5 tackles. He's usually averaging close to 10. And so I felt like he was involved in a lot of the missed tackles. Even Aluakon, there was a couple of times where he had a guy where could have had a chance to make a key tackle on a play and missed. Campbell, unfortunately, I don't know if he looks injured or what. He needs the offseason at this point. You're probably better off playing Buster Brown because he is not up to covering anybody outside of maybe a Kansas City Chiefs receiver. And Darius Williams has played really, really nice, which is unfortunate because he's one of our more veteran players. It'd be nice to be able to pair that with a more of a lockdown corner on the other side. But outside of Trayvon Walker's performance yesterday, getting another sack, doubling his performance year over year, there was not a whole lot of bright spots on the defense at all.
No.
No.
Anytime the Bucs, I mean, look at their drives. First drive, field goal. Second drive, touchdown. Third down, field goal. Fourth drive, touchdown. Fifth drive, that kneel right before the half. Sixth drive, touchdown. Seventh drive, field goal. They've got 30 points halfway through the third quarter. They score on essentially every drive, and then they coast. I mean, they could have put up 40, 45, 50 points. But I'm with you, Joey. I 100% lay this at the feet of the offense because the Bucs have scored a lot of points, and it's impossible to get a defense motivated when you're down 20-0. The offense gets the ball, and on the third play, they fumble the football for the third time, give them incredible field position. We're asking the defense to be world beaters when we don't have that level of talent. We invested all in on the offense, and they've stunk. The defense was bad. They deserve an F, but I blame the offense for the defensive struggles in these last several games.
You can tell the difference at the beginning of the season when there was all the hope for this offense. The defense played lights out. You saw them going balls to the wall, going after every turnover, trying to get the offense kick-started and going to show off the power. But it's just never come. Not once this season has this offense looked like the offense that we were promised. So I believe the defense has given up. And it's sad, but it's also kind of what we were expecting from them at the beginning of the season. They've not really regressed to where they're playing worse than what we thought they would. They're just regressed to where we thought they would be. The person that needs to step up is the offense. That's where all the money is. That's where all the talent is. That's where every focus is.
Where all the draft picks went.
Exactly. Everything goes to this offense. And if the offense isn't moving, the defense has no will to try to. They're not good enough. They're not the Jets or the Browns where they can win just off defense, or the Raiders. We just saw the Raiders beat the Chiefs, not from their offense, but from their defense. And I like our defense, and I think that they are really good when they have the momentum, but they're not good enough to win a game by themselves. It has to be helped at least somewhat by this offense. And the offense isn't doing jack diddly. They're giving you nothing. They got you no run. They get you no passes. The only thing they'll give you, and I can promise you that, is turning the ball over.
Just like JT's poem. We love to turn the ball over on offense. And yeah, again, a lot of this is just, this is week 16, and a lot of these problems have persisted every single week. I think we've said this multiple times. There hasn't been a game where it feels like the Jaguars put everything together. And JT, I love what you called out of, I can't point to one defender who really struggled because all of them struggled, which means that is a loss of intensity. It's a loss of will. It's a loss of desire. It's a loss of hope. Feels like the only people that have any hope right now are the Jag fans, because we're crazy enough to always believe in this team because we are the best fans in the world. But everyone on the field, this team is broken. I've said it multiple times, but watching them over and over again, that's the conclusion. It's the only thing I can come to, is that this team is seriously broken and someone needs to step in to fix it.
And not only are we talking about a broken team, I think there is a specific man that is so broken on this team that he has to leave before the Panthers game. And that's Brandon McManus. We talked about him a little bit, but I want to go into a little bit deeper in this segment. The man's missed 6 out of 7 field goals. That's unacceptable. That's Alabama field goal kicker-esque type. That's so bad that I don't even know of an NFL kicker that has done something like that. It's almost a guarantee miss now when Brandon McManus walks out there. And I feel so bad for Riley Patterson, who we kicked to the curb for this man who is just trash. And you know what? Riley Patterson is out there right now. We can go sign him. And if the Jags don't go hat in hand and apologize to him and say, we were absolutely wrong. We much rather take your accuracy than someone who can kick it 60 yards, but it's going to miss 60% of his field goals.
Yeah, we've said it multiple times. There needs to be some sort of change, some sort of spark. That feels like a sacrificial goat you could lay on the altar there. McManus, I mean, he's washed. He's already cost you a game against Cincinnati. He's missed 6 out of the last 7. Just cut him. Go get Riley Patterson. Plug and play, and that gives you at least a little bit of spark. Everything else would have to be addressed during the offseason. Completely agree. It's great having Agnew, though. Speaking about special teams, he is a difference maker. He is a player that we could end up winning a game just simply because of his performance. And so that is nice from a special teams perspective, but it's being so overshadowed by the negative play right now by McManus.
I think it's even a little bit more than that. I mean, look at the sideline when he misses the field goal. I talk about like how the 3 points made them fold, but I honestly think it's more of the missed field goal that makes them fold, knowing that they should have 3 points and it should be tied, and yet they don't. And they don't trust McManus ever now to really go out there and get a field goal. I think that hurts the offense already, who's already hurt. It's like kicking the crutches out of someone who's just trying to limp along, because the offense can't really get to the end zone. It's such a struggle for them. So you need a kicker. You need those 3 points because you're going to need him to do it 2 to 3 times because we're not going to get in the end zone every time. I'm sorry, this offense isn't good enough this season to get in the end zone every single time. So you need a kicker. You need those 3 points. Then it goes for 6 points and then 9 points. We've won games just because of Brandon McManus. And it's not just because it was Brandon McManus. It's because it's a kicker. And we have to have a kicker that makes his field goals. And he's not even making 50% of his field goals right now. You have to cut him. You have to. I'd rather have Brett Maher, the guy that's been cut from the Cowboys and the Chargers, more than I would want Brandon McManus, because I think Brandon McManus may be one of the worst NFL kickers that is out there right now.
Maher did miss, I think, an NFL record of either field goals or extra points in a game last season. So I don't know. I mean, look, the special teams, just like the rest of the team, is broken. Should they address it 100%? Do I have any faith that they will? No, I think we're just going to keep running and just hoping that something just sparks this team and fixes it on its own. But it's so clear this team is not going to get fixed on its own. You don't play for 3-4 months of football and just all of a sudden magically get fixed. So do I hope they go out and get a kicker that can at least make, I don't know, 70%? Even though in an NFL, you need to be kicking well over 80%. Yeah, it's no question they should. But look, we're recording this Tuesday night and we still haven't. Maybe we will this week, but this team is broken. And it seems like at this point, it's just a race to the bottom for this division because all 3 of the teams that are competitive in the AFC South got blown out on Sunday.
Yeah, which is a perfect segue to the last 2 weeks. So looking ahead, Jacksonville still, despite the fact that we look terrible, despite the fact that we've lost 4 straight in a row, statistically have a greater than 50% chance of still making the playoffs. And that's because a lot of the work that we did earlier in the year. And so there's a scenario where if we win and Houston loses to Tennessee and the Raiders, who just beat Kansas City, are able to beat Indianapolis, Jacksonville secures the division. We can literally secure the division in week 17 if we beat the Panthers at home and the Titans and the Raiders defeat the Texans and the Colts respectively. Let's say we actually lose to the Panthers and the Colts and or Texans still win. There are multiple ways that we still make the playoffs, most likely as a 7 seed at that point, because we own most of the tiebreakers. We own the tiebreaker against Pittsburgh. We own the tiebreaker against the Indianapolis Colts and Houston, assuming we are actually have the same record. We also own the tiebreaker now, I think, against Denver. I don't think we own the tiebreaker against the Raiders, who all of a sudden are playing for their playoff lives too. And we own the tiebreaker against Buffalo. So look, there's a lot of ways where, hey, you just win one of the next 2 games, you probably will still make the playoffs. Ideally, you're winning both of them and you've secured that 4th seed, which you're all of a sudden you're present to securing that seed would be playing most likely either the Bills or the Dolphins or the Browns, or maybe even I think the Raiders, or excuse me, the Ravens could still be the 5 seed if somehow they lose the next 2 and Cleveland wins, just because that in AFC North is so strong. But look, we'll look at the playoffs ahead. The reason why we're not all jumping off the cliff right now is because there's still a greater than 50% chance of us actually making those playoffs.
If we lose to the Panthers, I will petition the NFL not to let us in the playoffs. It's just kind of disgusting to all the other teams in the NFL to let such a sorry team play in the playoffs.
You heard it here first, Roger Goodell. I know you're listening, so let's make it happen. I don't know. I mean, we'll, of course, jump into this matchup more in our next episode, so I do hope you'll subscribe. But this should be a game where it is 2 bad teams going against each other. And, hey, here's the beautiful thing of the NFL. Here's the beautiful thing of pro sports. Winning cures a lot of things. And so if you can somehow find a way to win 2 games in a row, go into the playoffs 10-7 with a little bit of momentum, a home field playoff game, you never know. Well, with that, we are coming to the finale of the NFL season, and it's going to be fun. Look, it's been painful. We are maybe at rock bottom, maybe not. But all of that can change again Sunday, 1 p.m. Eastern, 12 p.m. Central. Hopefully not our final game of the season in Everbank. We're going up against the league worst Carolina Panthers, what seems to be hopefully a perfect opportunity to begin to turn this around. So, you know, the Jag Bros are going to be yelling it. We hope you are there yelling it for our Jacksonville Jaguars. Do go.